goal be to commentate in the UFC one day, doing Empire MMA, karate? Is the goal eventually UFC?
Man wants to be the best in the world. I view my play-by-play much like a fighter views a fight. My preparation is quite relentless, and I try and cover all my bases, dot the I's, cross the T's, and every moment that I'm on a headset, it's a moment for me to develop my skills. It's a moment for me to create not just good, not just great, but iconic moments for these fighters and elevate their performances to a different degree. I think that for me, I have this chip on my shoulder when it comes to commentary because I don't have a broadcast degree. It's not like this is something I went and got a classical education in. It's much more grassroots. Started out with esports streams that had 12 viewers. I'm doing local shows here in Arizona that are at the middle of fucking nowhere. You know what I mean? Some I don't even really advertise all that much on any of my platforms, right? So like I'm really starting at the complete bottom because that's just the opportunities accessible to me. So I'm like, well, yeah, if that's the UFC best in the world, I think in 8 years I'll be either at the UFC, at Bellator, or PFL, or some major promotion. That's my timeline is 8 years. And at the rate that I'm going, I wouldn't be stunned within 2 or 3 to have a seat at the table of a major regional show, like an LFA or a CFFC or something of that nature.
Yeah, I was going to say definitely in a few years you'll get a big regional show, but then maybe a few years after that you'll get the UFC Bellator come knocking.
I'm not in a rush, to be honest, as well. Like I said, at 8 years down the road is when I can really see these things coming to fruition. That's a long time. I mean, that's almost a decade.
8 years is a very long time.
But it's for me, that's like it's a reasonable outline because I can't, it's not like how it was a decade and a half ago. When Anik started commentating, he commentated his first mixed martial arts fight in 2009 and was calling UFC fights by 2013. You know what I mean? That Fitzgerald's route to the UFC was through getting laid off by ESPN. A month later, gets an audition for the Contender Series. Had never commentated MMA before that, and Dana liked his voice. Boom! After a couple of years on the Contender Series, you hear him on the Fight Nights, right? So there is no blueprint. There is no real outline to getting to the top or getting these opportunities. In my mind, it's all boiling down to networking. It's relationships. It's having people in higher places that want you to succeed. And, thankfully I do consider myself quite the savant at, meeting people and connecting with people. And that's been proven true time and time again.
Dana said that, when DC, John, and Joe commentate fights, they're not just free talking heads that you see on the NFL or on the other sports.
Yeah.
Like, Dana wants you to have a personality, have something about you.
100%, and I think that that is again, a bigger differential that I bring. Whenever I talk to promotions or I try and sell myself to these organizations, it's what I can do different. It's the value that I can bring that your existing model doesn't have. And whether that boils down to, I like your play-by-play guys. They're good, but they're not as well prepared as they could be, or they don't really stay in their lanes. Within booths, there is a composition that a lot of these regional shows don't adhere to. You got a play-by-play guy doing color commentary. It's not how it's supposed to be. You don't hear Anik going over a triangle choke and the nitty-gritty of how this submission is going to be finished. That's not the lane that a play-by-play guy is in. And so despite not having this formalized education, I've got this inherent understanding of okay, here's my area of what I got to do. And then I have to tee up my color commentators on everything else. I have to facilitate. I've got to direct, their attention, the show, the viewer's experience back home. And again, all the while making these good moments great and great moments iconic. And, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think I could get to the top in the timeline that I've established.
Yeah, definitely. Because you see with John Anik and Brandon Fitzgerald that they tee up Mike Bisping, DC, whoever they're with, perfectly.
It's what you got to do, man. I think that the second that you exit your lane as a play-by-play commentator, even a color commentator, you're just kind of compromising the booth. You're just destabilizing the experience. I've seen, because then there's a loss of control. I think that's the additional thing. And man, I just saw this last month, and I'm not going to get too specific on it because I like the people involved. But I was watching a show, and the play-by-play commentator had no real authority in the booth, man. He wasn't directing, he wasn't facilitating, he wasn't teeing people up. So nobody really knew when to go. And so then you'd have times where they're talking over each other, or a thought is half baked, and then someone else just butts in, and that shouldn't occur. The play-by-play guy, he's got to have the reins, man, and you got to fucking direct the shit. And if you can't do that, then you're not cut out for it. Apologies, I don't want to sound like a dick, but you know, you are taking up a space that a more qualified person could do, and it's at the detriment of the show. These regional shows are not cheap to put on, and while they're not making a ton back through the sale of pay-per-views, it's still important to nail the areas where you can. And you know, again, that's